I've been looking forward to this movie.
I was kind of looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, I think this movie got a lot of hype. A lot of people were talking about this, and hell, like you saw the pedigree to some extent, and I don't know, you can't help but think, wow, this movie's gonna be great, right? It has Brian Lee, D.Y. Sao, both of them returning from that wonderful film Shadow Master that we watched, was it last year?
A couple years ago, maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, you love that film, right?
Well, we should have learned our lesson then, because our feelings on Shadow Master were not very good for the movie as a whole. But I did like the final fight with Brian Lee and D.Y. Sao. It's a really, I don't want to say it's like a good fight, but like it has a lot of good stuff in it that I really enjoyed. And it just kind of goes on long, and it feels like it shouldn't be a part of that movie, because that movie is really, really hard to sit through.
Yeah. That movie, this is not a Shadow Master review, but just remember, if you guys remember that episode, all I remember was just getting really frustrated because the movie is just really terrible. And, you know, the two of them reprising, like teaming up again to make a film, you know, opposite one another. I guess it didn't click. I'm like, oh, technically they did a movie together already. So, is it another Shadow Master?
That's Ben's Wu, the ringleader.
We know your boss is in Thailand.
Well, I didn't realize that I would even be making this comparison until quite literally like sitting down 5 minutes before this review. Because again, I was hyped for this film. I thought it was going to be great. And, you know, looking at some of the cast too, like Ron Smornberg is in this. I didn't really realize that he was in the film until like looking it up afterwards. I'm like, man, age really takes a toll on all of us. So I was just shocked to see that he's in this film as well. So yeah, again, I'm like building on this intro as much as I possibly could, because like, you know, just really want to, you know, indicate again, like how much I was looking forward to this film. And, I don't know how to continue from here, because I'm a little bit upset because obviously it doesn't meet my expectations, but man, it's like, it feels like a student film, right?
I wouldn't go that far. So this isn't that bad, but yes, I think expectations did kind of hurt this. Mm-hmm, and I remember after the first watch, I was just, I felt pretty disappointed. But as I watched it again the second time, at a faster speed, because I knew I didn't like the story, I thought, you know what? This is fine for what it is. It's a low budget Thai film, and you have these DTV actors doing a martial arts movie. You know, they're spending a little more time with the fights, or whatever time that's allotted to them that they can. Story-wise, doesn't really matter. When it all comes together, you know, you see the budget, and it's like okay, it's fine. I would never rewatch this, but I think I like aspects about the action. Like if I were to just like watch it and appreciate some things about it.
You owe these people money. You know what's gonna happen.
They don't know who I am.
Okay, yeah, no, I get that. I totally get that. Story and some of the performances as a whole can feel a little bit, you know, amateurish, and that's where I'm coming from, right? Like that's where it feels like student film at times. I mean, maybe not that extreme, right? It's a, you know, just a slight margin above that, but for the most part, I mean, you're coming into a movie like this, seeing who's going to be in it, and you have to think, like, obviously you're here for the action, so, like, is the story good, right? And I can just flat out say, like, yeah, it's generic, which is fine. Generic is fine, but, like, it's sometimes the characters and the way that, like, the story plays out is so, like, so bland and that, like, I start to just like start poking holes in things. It's like, man, these performances are not very good.
I
Hope you know what you're doing.
Benz, is it? Yep.
DY Sao. DY Sao is our main lead here. He's the main character. He is like the most uncharismatic lead I've seen in a movie in a long time.
I mean, I guess he wants to be leading man. I think he's fine. I wouldn't say he's bad. It's just, yeah, you're right. He doesn't really emote anything that well, in my opinion. It's just like, oh, okay, he's sad here. He's angry here. It's like, sure, it gets it across, and it's not terrible, but it's not like good acting either.
Yeah, thank God his fighting is a lot better than his like acting chops. But that's not. I'm not here just criticize that. But like, yeah, Brian Lee opposite him. Brian Lee's just like overacting.
He's chewing scenery. He's the only one having fun in this role, and that actually is probably one of the few bright spots in this movie. It's like, oh, he's just doing every scene with a shit-eating grin because that's his character, or maybe that's just him, and that's the only way he knows how to act. And it's the only sort of levity that comes from this whole thing, and that's good, actually. Like the scene when this larger gentleman approaches him, and he realizes he's just so much shorter than him, so he gets on top of a crate to kind of be eye to eye with him. I was like, oh, I wonder if that was improvised, because that's actually really funny. That seems like, something his character or maybe he himself would do, realizing his stature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was neat. I kind of wish there was more like levity throughout the whole film. Something to that effect. Otherwise, the movie's very, very dry. Very much like it takes itself very seriously at times.
Dominic Macias has been on our top 10 most wanted for over a decade.
Macias is gonna test you. One wrong move, and you just disappear.
So let's get into that. Let's talk about the story. It's DY Sao is. Oh, I'm just realizing there's one tiny bit of information I'm blanking on right here. DY Sao is. He confronts and fights Brian Lee early in the movie because Brian Lee is some sort of drug smuggler or some sort of smuggler, and he's working for a big honcho or some sort. And now DY Sao in Thailand, yes. And now DY Sao was going to infiltrate that same group, pretending to be Brian Lee's character because that organization. That criminal syndicate that lives in Thailand never met Brian Lee. So now DY Sao is donning his identity, and he's just trying to infiltrate his way all the way to the big honcho so that, you guys pretty much already know the rest of this story, right? Just by me explaining this.
Well, I like that one of the things they try to do is they try to add the angle that since he's playing the bad guy, he could potentially becoming a bad person. And when you step back and hear that idea of this good cop who has to pretend to be one of the bad guys and maybe being corrupted in the process, that could make for maybe interesting character moments or interesting acting. The problem is they glaze over all of that with a montage. Yeah. And it kind of doesn't really go anywhere after that.
Yeah. They try. They try for a little bit. I mean, so there is this budding bromance between him and what is the actor's name? Is it Byron Bishop? Is that
Byron Bishop? Yeah.
It is. Okay, great. So it's between him and Byron Bishop, who actually works for the criminals, I guess. And you're just seeing their like relationship grow throughout the movie, and then so that's kind of where DY Sao becomes a little bit more conflicted because like, oh, he's my friends. I like my friends. So it looks like he might be switching allegiances. But then, like after that montage, you get like a small glimpse of him maybe like looking more like an asshole. And that lasts for like 5 minutes. And he's back to just being a cop again. And it's like, I kind of wish they fleshed that out a little bit more.
That would have been the more interesting thing to do with the story. But it gets sidelined because they're like, all right, well, let's just throw more action in here. Who cares about character? And That's about it.
See, here's the thing. If I have to keep on comparing to Shadow Master, it wouldn't be fair. But at least it's better than Shadow Master.
It is leagues better than Shadow Master. But
Yeah.
I want to say Shadow Master maybe has the better end fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that said, then let's get into the action, because there's not much else to really elaborate on story unless we like kind of spoil stuff. So Brian Lee and D.Y. Sao are the fight choreographers and the action directors, and Brian Lee is the camera operator.
Oh,
This.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you see it in the credits. And so I thought, I guess that's what happened here.
Okay, sure.
Maybe that can kind of contextualize what's going on with the action in this movie.
I see. Okay, I did not know that tidbit, because that explains kind of like why Brian Lee kind of takes a sideline in the story for a long period of time.
Yeah.
He kind of reappears later in the film, but I mean, I guess him as a person is just like the one behind the camera, so that's fine. I mean, the camera work and all, it's okay. Yeah, but I think, since we're talking about the action, the fight choreography is not terrible. It's not. It's it can feel a little bit YouTube-y, right? So I am thinking of the martial club like style of fight choreography. It feels like it's meant for small screen kind of like fighting. I think the best example is like the performers, those two specifically. Like they will do a lot of fight choreography where their whole chest is facing the camera, but they're fighting sideways.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Almost like they're fighting on a stage. Like,
so it's almost like for like stage play fighting, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I see a lot of that in this film.
That's an interesting way of putting it. I think I only saw that towards the end of the movie. I think my problem with the action in this movie is, so there's kind of two separate styles of action going on. You have D.Y. Sao when he fights alone and he fights other people, and then it's basically just D.Y. Sao and he fights other comparable martial artists like Ron Smorsborg or Brian Lee. That feels like that feels like more elevated fight choreography, because when D.Y. Sao it just fights other people, it kind of has that Thai style fight choreography where it's limited in combinations, but they try to go for the big finishers.
Yeah. I mean, this is technically a Thai film, right?
Thai film,
Pracha Pinkyao is the executive producer on this, so like you get that flair every once in a while, like that Thai vibe going on when you're watching this. I gotta say, I noticed that like throughout the whole film, I couldn't really pinpoint what their fight styles were. And I'm not here to talk semantics and be like, oh, that's Thai style and that's like Shaolin, like Southern Shaolin or whatever. But I noticed that for me, what was kind of distracting is that like without pinpointing what those styles were, characters in the middle of a fight would just switch styles, and it would be really just like weird it really like jarring for me, right? Seeing Brian Lee switch from like more like kung fu style, switching to like peekaboo boxing switching. I'm like, what is happening? Like, and he switches to like taekwondo. I'm like, wait, that's weird. That is weird. I found that really strange. It didn't feel very natural,
There's no way out.
That didn't bother me so much because that's the final fight between them. And that's where, they're just throwing everything. So it's like, so switching up the styles, like that didn't bother me so much.
Sure.
I think what I found distracting was D.Y. Sao was doing a lot of pantomiming.
Sure.
Obviously a lot of Bruce Lee inspired posturing. whenever he kind of does a move, he postures like, haha, I got you. And it was too much for me. I think, unfortunately, I have to compare. Like, I think Tony Jaa did it better when he would do the big move. He wouldn't posture. He would just look like pissed, but confident. And like, I like that. But then when D.Y. Sao, he would do a move, he'll like open up his arms. Like, ha-ha! Got you!
That's what I kind of mean. It's like, so like the whole Martial Club, like playing it up for YouTube. I mean, because like those short films that they did were fantastic, but like they're playing for like, you know, your home audience, you know, like should be watching that stuff like on, you know, on their phones and stuff or their laptops, and they're mostly like tributes to things that you recognize already, right? So seeing like like that style of like seeing the performers like kind of performing to the screen like explicitly, and also seeing like D.Y. Sao like doing homages to Bruce Lee. It's like, okay, that's why I'm saying like it starts to feel a little bit more like not fan servicey, but feels more like it's still trying too hard to take inspiration from other things, right, rather than be its own thing. That's the vibe I got. It's like it didn't play it it played it a little bit too safe for me a lot of the times. D.Y. Sao, you know, like, doing the Thai style, like snatching like a couple goons, like using like almost like Thai style, like Muay Thai style, like moves, and then switching to like the Bruce Lee thing. It's like, there's like, that's where like there's like disconnect for me. It's like, that's like, you're kind of like mixing things that don't mix well to me, like oil and water, right? But also like, it's also hilarious that I think like towards the halfway point, like he's beating up people and he's doing the Bruce Lee impressions, but like he's not doing the shrill voice. He's going, oh, trying his best to do the Bruce Lee.
I mean, I didn't mind the noise. It's just a personal nitpick. I didn't like the posturing, but he was consistent throughout at least. So that became his style, which was the elbows, the flips, the fancy kicks, and then the posturing. And so I said like, okay, at least it's consistent. I don't like it, but that's him. Yeah. Because D.Y. Sao, I mean, he's a great performer. The guy is still very acrobatic. The side flip into a side kick to hold his leg in the air up to somebody's neck in the one take. Like, that stuff's amazing to see him do. I kind of wish it was filmed differently. I wish maybe, like, for me personally, I didn't like the camera work, so I was surprised that Brian Lee was behind the camera. So I think that's just like a personal nitpick. And then it kind of culminates all into the end, right? The final fight between them. And you literally can see the different styles in each section of the fight. Because when it first starts out, hey, look, this is very obvious that they're doing fast-paced Shaw Brothers, where they're actually hitting the shapes, the traditional shapes. And they're doing these kind of like, like almost like it's blocky, but they're still very fast with all their combinations and all the choreography. Then you see it turn into boxing, kind of like the Kensuke Sonomura boxing almost, but a little more haymakery from Brian Lee. And then it just kind of goes off the rails when Brian Lee, it's funny, he like, what does he do? Just like a jumping, spinning back kick to a crate. The crate falls on him, which I think wasn't supposed to happen. Like it looks almost like a mistake. And then to fix it in the edit, he goes into like this animal lunge, and then they continue it from there. I was like, "Whoa, what is going on?"
Hey, I'm glad. A for creativity. Right? It's like, oh, we fucked up. We'll continue.
Just keep it going. Just keep it going. Yeah.
Hey, at this, I'm gonna give that final fight a little bit of credit. I mean, I'll give most of the fights in the movie some credit. Yeah, sometimes, the camera can be a little bit too close. Like, a lot of times, it's like, oh, these are mids, and they're like a really close up mids, and I kind of want to see more like wide shots of the action, especially since like there's just so much going on and they're moving really fast. Better silhouettes would have been better for my my old eyes. But like on top of that, like I like watching that final fight. I was just thinking to myself like that. Oh, this is great, performance wise. But then I realized, like one criteria for me that like that is really important for any action design or any fight scene is the storytelling of the fight scene, right? Like I actually hated the story in this final fight. It was like, wow, this is bullshit. Brian Lee is kicking D.Y. Sao's ass so hard that D.Y. Sao starts to run away. I'm like, okay.
I like that though. I like that little moment.
Really?
Yeah, because he realized
what kind of hero do you root for? The kind of hero who runs away during a fight.
I don't know. I thought that was funny because he realized he was fucked. He was like, shit, I can't beat this guy. So he tries to run away, and Brian Lee beats the shit out of him more and fucking body slams him onto a giant crate. And then like that's the end of like the part one of the fight. We get a little bit of time to wind down, and then you realize like the whole time I was like, okay, this is the moment. How is D.Y. Sao going to defeat Brian Lee?
Again, like how do you need to have good stories even in your fight scene. You have to tell, like it should be clear as day for me as the audience member to know, oh, D.Y. Sao, he was a pussy like 20 seconds ago, but he's gonna redeem himself somehow. How does he? I don't fucking know. I've watched this fight scene twice. I'm like, how did he win?
You know how he won?
How? Because the script said so, right?
No, he does Bruce Lee.
Oh, because he does the shuffle steps?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Anytime you see somebody do the shuffle steps or like change up their timing by doing an irregular rhythm with their step, it's an homage to Bruce Lee. That's just what it is.
But it's such a lazy approach to it, yeah.
In Way of the Dragon, it makes sense because he kept on trying and trying and trying. And then, he tries something new, it starts to work. And so he keeps on doing it. And then you see how that worked for Bruce Lee. Here, he changes up his timing and it starts to work for him. But then Brian Lee they're still kind of beating the shit out of each other, but a little less so on D.Y. Sao's part. And then they ran out of time. And I guess that's how I'll leave it, because the fight ends so unceremoniously.
Yeah. Oh God, that's a great way to put it. Because it just ends, and I kind of expected it to end like that. Because I did not expect it to end like that. It feels like there was supposed to be so much more. Terms of like if you think about the timing of the fight, they were still building anticipation into more stuff. Into Brian Lee losing, and then D.Y. Sao ultimately prevailing. But then there's just a clear moment when you realize like, oh, I don't think they had any more time, and so they just kind of had to end it. Yeah, maybe they just ran out of ideas. Because I won't lie, like because the final fight's actually not that long. It's told kind of sloppily for me. Like in terms of the story of the final fight, but it's really not that long. You get like a lot of quick flashes of really impressive things, especially coming from Brian Lee. Like he's so athletic, like it's crazy.
Dude, the guy is insane with his flips.
yeah, it's just like nonstop, like one shot after another. Like they cut, and every one of those cuts has another crazy acrobatic move in there. But I think. I have a speculation that Brian Lee is like, can we stop? Let's just kill my character already because I'm tired. That was exhausting. I had to do like 20 takes of each one of those.
Maybe that's what it was, or they couldn't think of an ending, or they had an ending, it didn't look good, so they had to just come up with a way to finish this fight, and that's just what it is.
if I watched this scene twice and I still didn't understand that it was supposed to be a Way of the Dragon homage, you clearly fucked up, because that's like, it was so heavily rushed. Like, I could not tell that was a reference they were doing. I thought he wasn't channeling Bruce Lee. I thought he was channeling Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
he was doing the shoulder wave.
Yeah, he kind of dances a little bit too. I was like, all right, he's trying something. Sure, why not?
But no, that's definitely not Bruce Lee. That threw me off my mark. But yeah, and then the movie just kind of ends there. Almost feels like they're sequel baiting, but not really. I kind of hope they don't.
A little bit, yeah. But I mean, it wraps up how all these drug, infiltration movies happen. So it's nothing surprising.
Right.
It ends, and that's
Bangkok Dog.
That's Bangkok Dog.
Yeah, I mean, okay, then maybe I was a little hyperbolic in the beginning. It's disappointing, but it's not terrible, all right? It's not Shadow Master. Shadow Master was just god-awful. But this is a step up, but it's not... I mean, because I had my hopes up, I was just kind of surprised that it was just not as good as I expected it to be. I don't know. I don't know what the hell I was expecting, honestly. Once I got like 10 minutes in the movie, I'm like, oh, it's going to be one of those films. Got it.
I mean, I had my hopes up. It started out good with their intro fight. There's flourishes of stuff here and there. I think when D.Y. Sao fights Ron Smorsborg, it's great to see him because he's known for his kicks. And even though he's much older now, you can still see he's kind of got it still.
Yeah.
And then the final fight between them, I like lots of little things about it, but as a whole, it's just kind of messy. I think it's just one of those fights you watch and you're like, okay, that's cool. That's a cool move there. But it's like, okay, why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? And then it doesn't work all together, but it's still better than Shadow Master.
Shadow Master, that's a low bar.
Yeah.
That we like, as long as it's better than Shadow Master, it's like, it's fine. I don't know. I'd say, like, would I recommend it? I don't know. Maybe watch the fight scenes in isolation. Maybe. I wouldn't recommend the movie. I really wouldn't. I don't think it's worth it at all.
This is the second time it was so much easier to watch because I just had my phone. I was like looking down but listening whenever there's talking, and then whenever the fights happen, I looked up and I was like, okay, yeah, this is more digestible in passive watching. So I guess that's the best way I could recommend it.
Yeah. It's clear as day. We both agree here. But I will say, there's only one scene that you need to watch. It has nothing to do with fights at all. It's a scene in the very middle of the film where some dude is captured. And some dude is captured by the main bad guy, and he gets his fingers cut off, and then he gets lit on fire. So that and like he's like the performer's just like on fire. He's like, I'm dying, I'm on fire, and then the main bad guy pulls out a gun and shoots him to death. I'm like, why did you light him on fire? Like, you had all this build up, just shoot him to death. And that's kind of how I feel about this movie. It's like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's stupid at times, but it will make you laugh.
Sure.